Being 6:30 on Monday, May 8th, I'll hereby call this regular meeting of the Gardner School Committee to order and ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Mrs. Cormier.
Present.
Mrs. Hurst.
Present.
Mr. Lafreniere.
Present.
Mrs. Layton.
Present.
Mrs. Palavin.
Present.
Mr. Schwartz.
Present.
Mayor Nicholson.
Present.
Amber Cameron, student representative, is absent. And Dr. Mark Pellegrino, present. All present.
Thank you very much. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is open time for the general public. Is there anyone here from the general public who wishes to be heard? Moving on to item C, recognitions by the superintendent, Dr. Pellegrino.
All right. So hi folks, I'm really excited to have the Gardner High School cheerleaders here today and to recognize our winningest team from Gardner High School. They've done a phenomenal job once again, and I'm really pleased that the school committee has chosen this time to recognize their accomplishments. If I could call up Jill and Nessa.
Well, so Nessa's not here today, but I'm Jill, I'm their coach. I just wanted to say thank you for inviting and for recognizing our cheerleaders for their outstanding season this year. As their coach, I'm so proud of them and the people that they are. Some of you may find this very surprising, but we don't coach them to win. We don't actually use that word, nor do we believe in it. We coach them to set goals, to learn how to recover, how to measure progress, and to try to be a little bit better each day than they were the day before. Everyone here started somewhere, and nobody ever gets to be perfect. We just work on that challenge of trying to be better, and this year, these athletes set their goals early in the year. They worked really hard, and they accomplished what they had set up to. So thank you for recognizing them today.
Would you mind, Jill, introducing your
Oh, yeah,
athletes?
absolutely. So this is Aaliyah Wheeler. She is an 8th grader. Oh, yeah, I know, on the varsity team, very exciting. This is Mackenzie LeBlanc. She's a senior. She's one of our, she was not captain, but she was captain previous years. This is Jordan LaLiberty. She's a junior this year. This is Abby Lemieux. She is our captain. She's also a senior. And this is Maddie Hawkins. She's a 9th grader. We have 2 ladies that are not here today, Aaliyah and Jaden Phillips. They're sisters, and they just weren't able to attend. And that's our varsity team.
So these young athletes of various ages, as Jill said, they obviously have a way to succeed, and that's obviously working really well. They competed in the National Cheerleading and Dance Championships, and they won the National Championship and the Judge's Choice Award. So congratulations to all the athletes. Great job. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
You're welcome to stay for the whole meeting.
No, don't. Don't do that.
No picture with the man?
Oh yeah, did you want to take a picture?
We're going to take a brief recess and we'll come back. Thank you.
They're gonna take a picture.
call the meeting back at 6:35 PM and moving on to item D, public hearing for the fiscal year 2020-24 school budget. We'll begin with the budget presentation and then we'll move on to comments from the school committee and then comments from the public for the hearing. And I'll hereby declare the hearing open. Dr. Pellegrino.
Could you go to the next slide? So again, each year when we do the budget, I like to make sure everyone understands that we do have a very changing demographic in Gardner. As you can see from this slide, which we just add to each year from 2015 to FY23, our students of high needs, which includes our students from low-income families, students with disabilities, and our English language learners. All of those we were about 54% back in 2015, and for FY 23, it's a little over 70% of our students are students with high needs. So they're at least a part of one of these populations, if not more than one. I do want to talk about out-of-district costs. So one of the things we've been doing, as you know, is investing in our schools to keep our students in Gardner. So students with disabilities, anyone with special needs, what we try to do is make sure we have the services here to keep them in our district so they're with their peers, they're with their community. And last year we actually had a reduction in costs. This year we had an increase. And that increase, believe it or not, came just in the last few months. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but it was about $750,000 increase just in the last few months. Most of those were students who came to our district, so they moved into the district, and they already had a plan that said they would be out of district. Because we have to recognize the stay put, which is if a parent wants them to stay out of district, they can then stay out of district. So there was a significant increase in our out-of-district costs, and that happened just over the last few months. We have been doing a phenomenal job. Joyce West has been leading the charge to make sure that we're continuing to put our resources in our schools. But this is one of the things that definitely has impacted the budget significantly. School choice is another piece we're obviously watching very closely. Back in 2018, when I first started, we had 300 students going out of the district, a little over that, and 110 students coming into the district. As of FY23, this is approximate. Might work out a couple more one way or the other when everything's finalized by the state. But right now we have 194 students going out and 154 students coming into the district. So as you can see, we're getting much closer to, and I'm very focused on the kids leaving the district. Having kids come to the district is a wonderful thing, but that's not really what our focus is. Our focus is to make sure we're meeting students' needs in the district so they stay in Gardner. So I like to see that yellowish kind of color coming down constantly, whereas the number of incoming will probably stay pretty flat. This is what that means in terms of dollars. So, again, the amount we're paying for school choice went down a little bit, and the amount we were getting went up a little bit. One of the things I just wanted to bring up briefly, this is not in your packet, but I just felt like I always need to do these slides, especially for the public. The Student Opportunity Act is what's really significantly changing the landscape of funding for public schools. This was done by the Mass Budget in just a few quick slides, and I'll be really brief. But in 1993 was the Education Reform Act, and that changed things for all schools in Massachusetts. And as you can see on the left there, that bar goes almost at a 45-degree angle up. And that's how much schools were, the funding was changing, was increasing dramatically. But from around 2002 all the way through 2019, it stayed pretty flat. So it's impacting schools dramatically. And if you look at this slide, this is really where the Student Opportunity Act came from. This is from, I believe it's 2015. They had analyzed the 2015, what is it? 2017 budgets, thank you, Mark. of schools, and what they found was, all the way over there to the right, those are the most wealthy communities in the state. So it's the top 20% of the wealthiest communities. And the blue shows what the foundation budget said they need to educate each individual student. So it's a cost per pupil that they were expected to spend. And as you can see, that's around a little over $10,000 for that cost. But they're paying $17,000 because they're able to put in so much more over what the foundation budget mandates, because they're a wealthier community. If you look at the poorest communities, the lowest income communities, that's the lowest 20% all the way on the left, that's where Gardner falls. And as you can see, again, on the blue, it says, here's how much you need because you have students who have more need. We have a higher population of high-need students. We were getting right at the foundation budget. We were always getting right at the minimum. But on average, we got about $1,000 more in the poorest communities. So it just showed that the zip code mattered for kids, and that was a major problem. So they radically changed the funding formula. Here's just quickly some other statistics. Health insurance, for example, from 93 to 2017 went up. Not a shocker, but they never changed the formula. So we were actually paying $5.9 million, but the foundation formula said, oh, you only need about $2.6 million. So that was taking money away from the education of our students. The next slide shows students with special needs, that we were spending $5.2 million, but the foundation budget formula said, oh, you only need $2.7 million. These other communities were part of the same presentation, so I just left them in for transparency's sake. And then this is just our analysis, and when you look at what was happening, as you can see, it says for maintenance, we were supposed to be spending $3.1 million. We were only spending $2.1 million. Where was that money going? It was going to teachers, special education teachers, special education support staff, and as you can see, we even had fewer non-special education teachers than the foundation budget formula said. So we were not getting enough money to truly meet the needs of our students. What they found in 2017 was if they actually had been fully funding Gardner Public Schools, we're all the way on the right, we had a shortfall of about $4.5 million in 2017 in order to truly meet the needs of our students. And this is what we were dealing with all the way through. So what they did was they said along 7 years, they've now condensed it down to 5 years, they said we're going to drastically increase the amount of money poorer communities are getting so they can better meet the needs of their students. What our charge was to find out, well, what does the community want? Well, we had a meeting with 50 stakeholders, parents, teachers, school committee members. We're all at this big meeting where we identified who are the populations that that are most in need of the additional monies. We said students with disabilities, English language learners, students from economically disadvantaged families, our Hispanic and Latinx population, and our African American students. And there were several evidence-based strategies that we identified, and this is where we pour money. Any of the money that we're getting, we're doing these specific things. And actually, if you look online, each year we have to show how are we spending our money. So when we had a $2.1 million increase this year, that's all listed now on the website because we did an update for that plan showing where are we putting the money, and we're putting the money specifically towards these strategies. As I've said many times, since 2019, we've increased our staff just in the classroom. We've increased by 48 staff members. So that's pretty significant, all based around these strategies. I say 48, there's actually a lot more than that. A lot of those are teacher leader positions. So, how do we do this? Again, we sit down, directors, principals, they submit a level funded budget, and then from there we ask them to cut $125,000. They meet with the superintendent and with me and the business manager, and then we all get together in a room. We say, okay, what are the most important positions? And from those positions that are cut, We ask them, what else do you need? We start putting positions in one by one. What's the most important position? So every single time we're trying to put forward the best budget to support all of our students as a district, not as individual schools fighting over money. Each principal and director is there saying, okay, I'm willing to give this up because this is more important. And so balancing the budgets. One of the things that we did was we worked with our local legislators. Representative Zlotnick was pretty instrumental in terms of talking about how do we strategize. We had ESSER money over the past few years because we did not have the full funding of the Student Opportunity Act. So the ESSER funds, which were grants because of the COVID pandemic, helped us and they supplanted those funds. Well, our job was to say, okay, well, we need to grow, but we can't grow so much that we're growing beyond what we expect to get for SOA funds. And so really it's an educated guess using all the information we can get on what will be the plan, what will it look like next year. And so when we did out the budget, the total funding, and you guys can all hear me if I step up here, right? Yeah, we need to increase the font on all these things. So as you can see, the total funding went up $4.1 million, which is a 12.1% increase. The total school budget went up 9.4%, and I'll go over a lot of those things. The costs that do not apply to net school spending, that actually decreased, and I never know how to truly explain this, but it impacts our budget negatively because that's the city's funding of things that don't count towards net school spending. So it takes away from our budget. So that was an increase of $134,000. The city indirect costs went up by $800,000, and so the net school spending was $38 million for essentially a zero gap. And this is the first time we've actually had a zero gap. And this means that, correct me if I'm wrong again, ESSER is not necessary right now for this particular budget to fund this year's budget. So as we were trying to accurately identify what's the level, we were pretty accurate considering we have 0% for a gap. Correct me on anything? We're okay? All right. So the first thing I asked Mark to put together was, where did the money go? $4.1 million. Our typical increase is about $1 million, just to do the cost of business of typical cost of living increases, the increase of electricity, all those things. Typically costs about an additional $1 million a year. So $4.1 million to have a zero offset, where did the money go? Well, like we said, like I just said, we've increased the number of positions and we tried to calculate it. Well, that increased our salary line by $1.3 million. Expenses went up $1.2 million. Some of that was, again, from our planning. Some of that's just from the fact that our out-of-district tuition increased. Our utilities went up, electricity went up 60%. So all of those things increased a lot more than was expected. Also, we had a deficit last year of $800,000. We don't have a deficit this year. So we're able to cover all the things that we were looking for this year's budget. Any questions on where I am so far? Okay. So this says budget restorations, additions, and reductions. We didn't have any restorations because we didn't cut anything last year, or over the last few years. We've been growing. Yeah. And we don't have any current reductions. What we do have is additions. Again, looking at our most vulnerable populations, we've been focused a great deal on students with special needs. Right now, and so by the way, it's paying off. Joyce, I'm sure I'm going to steal a little bit of your thunder, but basically, we had our tiered focus monitoring. No findings. So we're doing a really good job. We want to stay at tier 1 because that means they come in, they meet with Joyce, they inspected some of our facilities. It was not as big as, or as in-depth an oversight as we typically have.
Can I
Yes.
just say that in all my years of advocacy, we're at a point here in this district where I've been advocating for this for close to 36 years. And it's happening, and parents, to be able to keep their kids in this district, to be part of their community, to be with their friends, is huge. And it's what parents have wanted for a really, really long time. And I know that the out-of-district placements sound like, you know, I think some people need to understand the stay put piece of that. That's one of the parents' rights, that if they're not happy with the program someplace else, they can stay put where they are. But that doesn't mean that that child would never come to school here.
Absolutely not, yeah.
You know, so it's always a process with those types of kids.
Absolutely. And each kid's, it's an individual plan for
It is.
individualized students. So,
It is.
yeah, thank you for that. And so, and I'm really proud of the staff, of again, Joyce's leadership, you know, and again, the support of the school committee, and, you know, as we've gone forward, we're meeting the needs of our students better than we have in the past. To be level 1, we have never, Gardner Public Schools has never, that means ever in our history, been at level 1. We've always been at level 3. Level 4 is typically where they're looking, that could possibly take over, is that correct? So we don't ever want to be, we don't want to go back. However, we did have some findings, and Kathy will talk about that, are for our English language learners. So we have to make sure that we're bolstering their services, and this is going to be a major focus of our time over the next several years to make sure that they're getting what they need. And that will come out in some of the presentation. I can keep it here for a second though. So some of the things we are adding is another special ed teacher at Gardner High School, an English learner teacher at Gardner Middle School, an LPN at Gardner Elementary, and at one on our end at GMS. I say this, so we've had these positions in a grant. What we have found is they are now part of our MTSS process. We're actually incorporating them into the how we do things in MTSS. They've never been able to do that because we've always been short-staffed when it came to nurses. We've had 1 in each building. You can't even imagine 1. There's 3 now at the elementary school with so many students. But having 2 in each one of the other schools, other than Gardner Academy, really has helped make sure that our kids, again, are getting what they need. I just was talking with Becky McCaffrey today, and she was talking with, she was at the elementary school. They, with telehealth, while working with a nurse, they actually were able to diagnose strep throat right there. The parent was able to come pick up the child, bring them home, and take care of them. They didn't have to bring them to the doctor. They were thrilled. So to have that speed with which we're able to respond to students' needs has just been phenomenal. I think it really helps families.
Yeah, and children who are medically compromised too nursing is so different now than it was like when I was in high school. But kids who are like medically fragile and stuff can come to public school because they can be supported here. And that's another huge piece.
Absolutely, thank you. We added another adjustment counselor and a special ed teacher at Gardner Elementary School, and the graduation coach position, which is typically funded through grants. We're not able to fund through a grant anymore, and that is $30,000. So salaries went up, as you can see. Typically, our special education, because we've been focused on adding those positions, that went up 10%. Information services, the reason that's down, it's a negative 367%, is because our IT department is now outsourced. So it's actually under expenses, it's not under salaries. And you know, Mark and I were talking about this today. We have just as many regular staff working in the district. However, we also are able to tap into other high-level directors when we need networking. When we have basically we have a consultant on hand all the time, and we have a help desk. Things we've never had before, help desk for teachers and for families. So that's been very different for us to pay about the same amount of money and have all those services. So when they need a lot more folks over the summer to initialize a bunch of Chromebooks, they can just pull people from the larger organization to come over and help us to make sure that we're ready for the upcoming year. So it's kind of nice because it's like an accordion. When they need more, they can take a little more. When they need less, they can go right back down to the size. Any questions on any of that? All right. Our expenses, support services went up 35%. That's a big shift. In central administration, that went up 50%, but that's the out-of-district cost. So that includes out-of-district placement. That's why that went up so much. And support services include things like guidance counselors, occupational therapists, speech language pathologists, things like that. I'd like to put in this slide just about circuit breakers. I know it's so confusing for folks, but basically for FY23, our revenue was $306,696. We put that into next year's budget, and as you can see, our out-of-district placement, that basically defrays a little bit the cost of our out-of-district placements. You know, we're projecting for FY for next year. We actually have no idea. That's why it's not. All right. These are just costs that don't apply to net school spending. You'll see a shift here. One of the things, so regular education transportation increased 54,000. This is one of those areas that's really important. As you can see, Marlboro just went on strike. There were two other districts that almost went on strike, but they were able to settle. We hope that nothing like that happens out here. Foster care transportation went down 43%. However, our special education transportation went up 15%. So as you can see, the difference is we increased special education transportation by 127,000, and we decreased foster care by 47,000. Basically, all we're trying to do is give our best estimate as to what the transportation will be. That goes up significantly every year. There are struggles with that, just finding spots for folks, especially with foster care. Right now we have a student who's in foster care out in Upton, an hour away, and we cannot find transportation for that student. So not only is it very expensive, but we can't always find the transportation because the services just aren't available sometimes. So our revenue projection, state funding was an 18% increase of $4.1 million for the state funding. And then the required net school spending, the increase to the city was $540,000. Which is a significant increase, and right now we're going to be at the amount that the city can provide. So next year, Mayor Nicholson and I have been talking. Next year, we're probably going to go up another 500,000+ for the minimum requirement. So it's going to be important that we figure that out. And that's how the city was funded over net school spending and where we are now. So our funding gap as of May 8th, 2023 is $0. I don't think I've ever done that before. Like I've never had zero. Yeah, we've always had a gap, and this is the first year where right on the money.
Are there any questions, comments, concerns from the members of the committee?
So that Upton student, what's happened? So he's not going to school?
Is going to school, but right now being transported by DCF staff.
Well, they're the ones that required it, so they should.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a whole conversation.
I know that. I got part of it earlier, but I just wanted to know if it had moved at all.
Yep,
But
no.
evidently it not.
Unfortunately not, no.
Any other questions?
I was just
Ms.
gonna
Wardman.
thank you for going into detail and explaining it, because looking over this, in my own little head and world, it's a lot to take in, but when it's kind of broken down and you understand, like, this piece goes here and this is here, just thank you for reviewing it in detail. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Where is he? Oh, he's behind the podium.
Any other questions, comments, concerns from members of the school committee?
Just
Yes.
great that the school district is doing so well. Populations are increased again this month compared to last month. And I think those are fantastic, because I recall when the school population for the district was just about 2,300, and now we're well over 2,400. So that's fantastic. The word is out. Come to Gardner. It's the place to get an education.
Where this is a hearing, is there anyone here from the general public who wishes to be heard on the topic? I'm required by law to ask this 3 times. Is there anyone here from the general public who wishes to be heard on the matter? And last and final, is there anyone here from the public who wishes to be heard on the matter of the school budget? Seeing none, I'll now entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Motion made by Attorney Plavin, seconded by Mr. Lafreniere to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The public hearing is closed at 7:01 PM. Next item on the agenda is item E, the adoption of the fiscal year 2024 school budget proposal. Is there a motion on the floor? Ms. Ward-Layton.
Motion to accept the budget as presented.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mrs. Ward-Layton, seconded by Mr. Schwartz to accept the budget as presented. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Great job.
Ms. Hillman, I believe this has to be roll call vote?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, do we, in that motion, do we need any financial figure or anything?
Yeah, we should.
I think we should do it.
I mean,
Okay. Yep.
rather than just as presented, shouldn't there be,
Mark, the number you want to give?
38.
31,316,678.
wait, 31 million?
31,363,000.
Say that again slowly, Mark.
31,316,678.
Okay, so that would be in the motion, okay.
Ms. Ward-Layton, that good with you?
Yes.
Make with the motion. Mr. Lafreniere, Mr. Schwartz is the second. That good with you?
Okay.
Yes.
And we should have
where
a
this is
roll-
financial, it has to be roll
A
call.
roll call because it's financial.
Yes.
Okay, Mrs. Cormier,
Yes.
Mrs. Hurst,
Yes.
Mr. Lafreniere,
Yes.
Mrs. Layton,
Yes.
Mrs. Plavin,
Yes.
and Mr. Schwartz.
Yes.
That is 6 in favor, and the
Yes.
mayor doesn't need, you can vote if you want.
Yeah, put me as
You
yes.
vote for any vote. All right, there's 6 members, and the mayor is 7 votes yes.
Thank you very much. Moving on, item F, the consent agenda. This is included in your packet for, the information is in your packet. Is there a motion on the floor?
Someone.
Motion made by Mr. Lafreniere, second by Mr. Schwartz, that was you. correct?
Second.
Yeah. To adopt the consent agenda as presented. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item G, subcommittee reports, facilities subcommittees, Mr. Schwartz.
Oh, my. Well, I'll do it on memory. We met at Elm Street School earlier in the month. I don't remember exactly when. What does it say? Yeah, okay. April 13th. No, we met on wait a minute. April 13th at Elm Street School. The reason why we did that, we just wanted to know that we're getting close to the administration departments to finally move into Elm Street School along with Galt. So we reviewed the Galt classrooms, and they're on the ground floor, and they have, if you're not familiar with the setup of the Elm Street School, I apologize. I wrote the minutes based on my years at Elm Street School, which was then the high school, so I'm mentally quite familiar with it, but some of you may not be familiar with it. I apologize for that. But anyway, the Galt is on the ground floor. The office is the same as it was when I was there. And their classrooms, they have all the classrooms on the first floor, all the way to the double doors on the north and south wings. If you can picture that, it's kind of U-shaped, and there are some double doors before you go outdoors. And beyond the double doors, there are one other classroom on each end. And the dining facility for the Galt is on the south end in one large classroom where the food service people bring their foods in, and that's where the kids eat. They don't go downstairs to the cafeteria. That's used by the Boys and Girls Club in the afternoon. Joyce Special Needs, she's going into the back, what I would call it, annex, that was built at a time, when I was in school, because we needed to expand the high school. So the special needs are going in there. We didn't review that. I remember what it was like. And then the upstairs on the second floor, the administration office, all departments, other than special needs for the children, they're all going on the second floor. Huge classrooms. Everyone's going to get a huge classroom for an office. So there's a long way to go yet, but well, I'm looking forward for those departments to be moved in. For Joyce, you're going to have your own house, so to speak, like you do now, but we're going to be a closer group, which is going to be good for the administration of the school district. And that's about it. That's what it was.
Questions, comments, concerns from members of the committee? Hearing none, moving on to the Finance Subcommittee, Mr. Lafreniere.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Finance Committee met on May 2nd. We reviewed the expense report. It was noted that Gardner High School substitutes continue to increase in the negative and will be adjusted at the year end. Electricity shows a negative due to the higher encumbered amount than budgeted. The middle school substitutes continue to increase there also. That'll be adjusted. Gas is in the negative. That'll be made up at the end of the year. Substitutes also affect the elementary school, is also showing in the negative, and electricity is in the negative due to the higher encumbered amount. District as a whole, management and info systems is negative because we increased our bandwidth, which increased our amount, our annual cost, I'm sorry. Out-of-district tuition will continue to go into the negative and will be made up at the end of the year. Professional services continues to go negative as the district required an outsourced SLP. Legal expenses continue to grow negatively. Gas is over budget and will be made up at the end of the year. Plowing and sanding is in the negative. Hopefully that will not go any further in the negative the rest of the year. Projects update, Watkins Field concession and restroom work is almost complete. The base coat of the paving was put down last week and top coat is expected this week, which I believe is done now. That's done.
Yes, it is.
There's also an electrical panel that was ordered over a year ago that we still hadn't come in. I'm not sure if it's arrived since our last meeting. Do you know? No, still not in. And then, let's see, July 1st or thereabouts, the varsity softball and baseball fields should have dugouts being installed. This was delayed due to that late snowstorm. Then we're going to have declaration of surplus property. I believe we'll hold that off till our next
No, it's tonight.
meeting.
Tonight's-
Oh, that one is? I'm
it's
sorry?
tonight.
The mats are tonight.
The mats are-
The mats are tonight, okay.
Okay.
All right, so we have the mats, and that was it, I believe, because I don't even have the mats listed on here, do I?
Any other questions,
No.
comments, concerns from members of the committee?
Yeah, that was it.
Ms. Knight?
I did have a question about the the substitute funding. And forgive me for, I just simply don't remember if this came up as an issue last year to have such a negative for substitute funding. Is it every year that this is, okay, alrighty.
It's a hard target to determine.
Because you just don't know how many teachers are gonna be out on which days. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns from members of the committee? All right, and members of the school committee, not the subcommittee. We'll just throw out there for informational purposes, the city did just last week sign the new municipal aggregation contract for the next 3 years, and the electric rates will be going down from 24 cents per kilowatt hour to 14 cents per kilowatt hour. So we'll see a reduction in that come November 1st. Moving on, we do not have a representative from the Student Advisory Board here with us, so we'll be moving on to discussion items. New business, item number 3516, second reading of policies. Mrs. Hurst.
Yeah, we have 3 policies for second reading tonight. BGD, School Committee Review of Procedures. CFA, School Building Administration, Administrative Coverage. CHCA, Approval of Handbooks and Directives. DJE, Procurement Requirements.
Is there a motion made by Mrs. Hurst? Is there a second to
Second.
adopt those? Motion made by Mrs. Hurst, seconded by Mr. Schwartz to adopt the policies as presented. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item number 3517, surplus mats at Gardner High School. Mr. Lafreniere.
So, we have some high jump mats and pole vault mats as surplus. We've ordered and received new mats, so we need to dispose of the old ones. So I'll make a motion to declare those mats surplus.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lafreniere, seconded by Attorney Plavin to declare the mats as surplus. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item number 3518, appointment to Keystone and CAPS Collaborative. Dr. Pellegrino.
I humbly put my name forward to represent the Gardner Public Schools for Keystone and the CAPS Collaboratives.
Do we do those as separate motions, or, because they're 2 different entities, right?
We could, so
So I'll
I'll
move to appoint Dr. Pellegrino as the Keystone Collaborative representative.
representative, yeah.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Attorney Plavin, seconded by Mrs. Cormier to appoint Dr. Pellegrino to the Keystone Collaborative as our representative. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Dr. Pellegrino as the CAPS Collaborative representative.
Is there a second? Motion made by Attorney Plavin, seconded by Mrs. Ward-Layton to appoint Dr. Pellegrino to the CAPS Collaborative Board as our representative. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
I thank you all for your support.
Item number 3519, kindergarten registration update for the 2023-2024 school year. Is this you, Dr. Pellegrino?
Yes, it is. And I have to say, the elementary school is rocking it. They actually decided to do registration a little bit differently this year. They asked to do 3 full days of registration from 10 to 3, and then 1 evening from 5 to 7. Usually at this time, we have about 70 or 80 people signed up. Right now, as of today, we have 143.
Wow.
So big difference. Kudos to the staff. And online registration is up and running as well. So I think with those things, we're doing a much better job of getting a better indicator of how many kids are going to be in kindergarten for next year.
Is it an estimate? I'm just looking at the numbers. I think of the biggest class is around like 195 right now.
Yeah.
So it's about the cap of how many
It'll-
kids we can fit.
Yeah, well, it'll be about 200 kids.
Yeah, okay.
That's what we're expecting.
It's most years, we don't find out until August 30th
Right.
how many kids are coming, so this is better.
Yeah, to be at 143 now is great.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments, concerns on this item? Moving on to item number 3520, ELL coordinator update. I believe this is a presentation, correct?
No, GPS ELL department. So who's doing the presentation?
You gotta turn the TVs on.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know.
That's right.
All right.
So just very quickly, this year we have 166 total L students in pre-K through 12th grade. They represent about 14 different languages spoken other than English, and we have 8 ELL teachers in the district. We did just complete our tiered focus monitoring, and we have our preliminary feedback. Most of the findings were around programming and paperwork and record keeping. So we have, Kathy and I had met quite a few times prior to the visit, and we had already identified a lot of these issues as being things that we were going to probably need to address. And so we preemptively have already purchased Elevation, which is a ELL platform that will help the ESL teachers better keep track of the paperwork aspect of the record keeping. One of the things that they found was that we need to do a better job of translating the parent notifications that we send out each year. And so Elevation will actually generate those in multiple languages and then make it very easy to copy them and keep them in the student's queue. One of the other things was having a student success plan for students who hadn't met their language targets for the year. And Elevation will also help with that because it will generate a student success plan and recommend some goals for the students and help with just record keeping for how the students are progressing towards meeting their goals. It will also help with notification, for monitoring, because when a student exits the EL program, we have to monitor those students for 4 years, and that right now is a very cumbersome process for the ELL teachers. A lot of just changing of paper, passing hands. And so this will streamline that and make it a little more effective for the teachers and take less of their time and just the mundane paperwork. And it also is a great place to just store and analyze the data of all of our students. One of the other findings that they had was that we needed to have an LPAC. We have been trying to get an LPAC going. We've held multiple meetings this year. We have not been successful in getting very many parents to come. We have conducted surveys. We updated the flyer to try to make it a little more user-friendly. And after speaking with Mr. Valade from DESE when he was here, he said, why don't you kind of put even though it's a finding, he said, why don't you kind of set LPAC aside and work on family engagement and just getting parents back into the schools. So we are planning our L celebration for June to celebrate the students who are going to be reclassified out of L services. And Erica Crowell and I were talking about maybe doing like an ice cream social in August to get the parents and students, like as a back to school kind of thing, to just try to get some interest in being back in the schools. Our teachers are out in the community, and so are our students. The teachers and kids both participated in the GPS Community and Culture Festival, and we also hosted a Bingo for Books event at the elementary school in April. We had, I think, 5 families represented. Not a huge turnout, but we also found we were bumping up against a lot of sports. So we'll have to think about that for next year. And the final thing that I wanted to talk about was professional development. All of our core and special ed teachers are required to have an SEI endorsement on their license. And so I was in the school, and the majority of them have that. But I was in the schools this spring in each of the schools doing a refresher with all of the teachers to just reinforce how we can meet the needs of all of our students. And I will be holding a professional development this summer in August for any teacher that is interested in attending that.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Schwartz.
The English language parents that need the family participation, is there any reluctance of those parents really to participate because maybe they don't know any English at all?
It could be. I honestly can't answer that
Or they
question.
might be working nights?
It could be, we held a meeting in the morning
Oh, okay.
for parents that were maybe working in the evening. We held a meeting in the evening for parents who are working during the day, because we were trying to make sure that we fit the needs of whatever the parents needed. We did the survey to try to find out, and it was sent to all of the L parents in the district, to try to find out when they would like to meet, if they were interested in meeting. We only got 7 responses, and the responses were positive, that they would like to attend. That's why we held the 5 o'clock meeting, because they said that they would rather meet after 5, so we had that meeting. Erica and I were there, we stayed until 5:30, nobody came.
Really?
Yeah, and so I can't really tell you why they're not coming. We're just gonna keep trying and try to get people to come and try to get the interest going, because it would be nice to have an active LPAC.
Thank you for that.
I will say DESE did recognize, although this was a finding, they did recognize all of our efforts in trying to get an LPAC up and running. I think traditionally family engagement has been parent nights and things like that, so we're really trying to think creatively of how we engage parents. Because, you know, oftentimes parents are, you know, they're working, and if things are going well at school, why do I need to be part of an LPAC? So we want to figure out how can we engage parents in a very positive way to, again, help and guide us and just involve them in their child's education. So, and I just wanted to mention before other questions come up, just, you know, Lori's been phenomenal in starting to lead this charge. This year she's been a half-time administrator, half-time teacher at the middle school. Very difficult to have, you know, a foot in both of those areas. This coming year she'll be a full-time administrator, which is what we desperately need. We've traditionally had approximately 100 English language learners. It's gone up a little bit, it's gone down a little bit, and you're required to have a full-time English language learner director when you're over 100 students. We are now solidly over, how many do we have again? What was it?
166.
166. So we absolutely need Lori. The other thing that I have to say is, when it comes to evaluating and supporting our teachers, giving them professional development, our principals are not equipped for this. Our principals are not trained in how to teach English as a second language. We're very familiar with general instruction. We're very familiar with tiered instruction, special education supports, those types of things we're really good at. But when it comes to English language learners, the needs are so specific. And how many teachers do we have again fully now for next year? It'll be 8 next year, right? So that will be one of her primary foci, is to make sure that teachers have what they need, they have the supports, and that we're doing all we can for our students. But to have her helping us in this area, have a specialist who knows this area. Before, what we had a split position between grants and English language learners. So there was always that split. Then for a little while, Kathy took it on in addition to her current role. And that was not enough, and that's why we've moved in this direction. And Lori's been absolutely phenomenal, and I'm really excited, you know, as we move forward to better meet the needs of our our emerging bilinguals, really.
I just had a question. When you said they're exiting the program, can you explain that a little bit better? Because I think we all understand how kids end up in the program.
Sure. So when a student comes into the district, they fill out a home language survey. And if a language other than English is indicated on the form, then they are screened for EL services. If they qualify for services, they start receiving the services. And we use SEI, Sheltered English Instruction, in the district. Every year in January, all L students take the access test, which assesses their reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And if they reach a 4.2 composite overall score and a 3.9 literacy composite score, then they can be looked at for reclassification out of ELL. And if they are reclassified as we call them FEL students, a former L student, then they are monitored for 4 years. And the monitoring process happens 3 times a year. the core teachers, because the EL teacher no longer sees them, so the core teacher is given a form where they fill out how the student is doing in class. And if they feel like the student is doing okay without the support of the EL teacher, or if maybe we need to look at bringing them back into the program. If the teachers think that the student needs to come back into the program, then we're working on developing a process of, you know, how are we going to set goals for those students and all, you know, and put those supports in place, and then we would reach out to the parents and talk to the parents, and it would ultimately be the parents' decision to bring them back in.
So the goal is to get them to a place where they can be back in the regular classroom?
Yes.
Or at least being able to absorb all the information within the regular
Right,
classroom?
right, to have the language acquisition, the language level of their peers.
Thank you.
Sure.
I believe you said there were 14 different languages in the district?
Yes,
Wow,
yes.
I have trouble with English sometimes.
Me too.
Ms. Orlane, did you have something?
I had a question about, especially the family engagement. I worked for a while in Worcester, and then I worked in Fitchburg, and of course we have immense ELL populations. And do you think, in addition to, you know, the normal, like if things are going well at school, you know, leave it be, do you think there's also maybe some cultural barriers that are between our families and, you know, for such a long time, we've been a largely, you know, English-speaking white demographic. Do you think that there are some cultural barriers that are they're just in existence that we're bumping up against, as far as the understanding that school is done at school, it's not done at home type of situation?
I think that culture plays a huge role in everything, and so I think, of course, that is a possibility. I do agree with Mr. Blade that especially with COVID, just, you know, having been, and everybody was so standoff, you know, don't come to school, don't. And I think that it's going to take even longer for our L population to feel comfortable coming back into the school. Mm-hmm. And so that is a goal for me next year, is to really focus on what can we do to make our families feel comfortable in the school and coming back.
That's interesting to think about, that how COVID would exacerbate
Yep.
already present like cultural barriers, because just of the nature of, you know, you have, in some families, you have multi-generational families living together, different work situations, different care situations. So that's a good point. I hadn't even thought of that as one of the contributing factors.
I think we're just lucky to have you.
Yes.
Thank you.
This is very much needed.
Yeah.
We have
I'm gonna
166.
Quote the city council president that always says, there's always been another language in Gardner that's other than English that's spoken. It's not the traditional French and Polish anymore.
Yeah.
But we just meet the needs of what we have at the time.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Ms. Simpson. Thanks. Moving on, item number 3521, curriculum coordinator update. This was included in your packet for information. Is there any questions, comments, concerns? Move it. Thank you very much, Dr. Gogan. Moving on, item number 3522, grant administrators update. This was included in your packet for information. Is there any discussion on this item? And then moving on, item number 3523, special education update. Ms. West, you have a presentation for us.
So I was going to focus tonight on our tiered focus monitoring, and it's been very timely because April was the last month that the tiered focus monitoring was finalized. So I was hoping tonight just to quickly go over the process so you really understand how comprehensive and involved the process is, and then certainly get to the results, which you heard a little bit about earlier tonight. So we just want to go on to the next one. So just so you know, it's hard to compare apples to apples over the last years, especially since I've been a director, because they have changed the auditing process. And really the current process right now happens every 3 years. And what they do is they break everything down into 2 sections. And so the first year you'll be identified as Group A, and then 3 years later you're Group B. This year we were Group A. In the past, we would have all this together every 6 years. So I'm kind of grateful that they did break it up, and a lot of directors are as well. Group A, this is really what we're being assessed on. There are actually 52 areas that they're looking at when they come in. And so you can only imagine if we did both groups together, what that would look like for a district. So it's really comprehensive. It's comprehensive under 3 different areas, and within those areas, not only do we have the standards that they're looking at, but they're also looking at indicators, and those are indicated by the bold red numbers there. And those actually give us an annual rating every year. So those red markers are really important to us because we are graded on those annually. Just so you know, the new process with the tiered focus monitoring, they do differentiate the process depending on where your district is falling in terms of the level of need. And as Mark mentioned earlier, luckily, because we are a tier 1 district, we have been found to have really little concern. So when they're coming in, they're basically saying, we don't have a high level of concern for you as a district. We've looked at targeted standards, which also give us an annual rating, and based upon those targeted standards, we don't have any concerns, meaning that within the last year, we really had a good rating in regards to any problem resolution, complaints, discipline reports, things of that nature. So we were in good shape with them coming in. And this kind of shows you really what it looks like when you look at the 4 tiers. And of course, we're in tier 1, so that's the self-directed improvement. And as you kind of increase in tiers, it becomes real comprehensive and a much more rigorous process. And as I mentioned here, tier 1, we really are into self-directed improvement, and so really, again, no real concerns. So I just wanted to share that. Keep repeating that. And actually, the process this year, this process actually started last year. This is about a 16-month process. This is not a fly-by-night process by any means. And so it started last spring, heavily, actually. And then come September, we're still asked to do quite a bit. As you can imagine, with the 52 standards that we have to focus on and the indicators, there's a lot of paperwork going back and forth, uploading to DESE, emails with DESE, meetings with DESE. So it really is, it takes a lot of time. And I do have to put a plug in here for my team. We have 5 special education administrators. One is the preschool coordinator lumped in there, Arvid Tenney, Tasha Gamble, Stu Eklund, Sharon Sarsanelli, and Virginia Jepson. And without them, honestly, we just wouldn't be able to do the work the way we're doing it. We've worked many nights last year and this year beyond our work day to really make sure we're organized and ready for this audit. Last month, and this was really the report, we did have a lot. We had 3 liaisons from DESE come in to look at 10 records. And that sounds like overkill, really, but when you go into a student record review, we have 7 areas that they actually look at our records for. And within those 7 areas, there's anywhere from, I probably combined, if they look at all 7 areas, there's probably close to 100 questions they have to answer with every record. It's absolutely mind-blowing how regulated special education is. We had surveys for our special education parents. The DESE liaison did meet with our CPAC to go over the process as well as interview our CPAC chair. I was also interviewed in the past. We'd have many more interviews. I did have a lengthy interview, which I didn't mind as long as I was the only one being interviewed. I think it made the process much easier this year, so that was great. DESE did, however, want to walk into our buildings that had calm-down rooms, which is not a surprise considering that there have been advisories out in the past few years around calm-down rooms. However, they were completely amazed at GES's calm-down rooms in the space and how the walls were set up, and that was a big discussion. I know when the building was being built, so they were very pleased. The calm-down rooms met all the standards as listed out in the regulations. They did look at our documentation review process, our teams, not special education staff now, but our teams that walk them through these rooms, and our process really knew their stuff, because when we do this, we really take our use of calm down rooms seriously, our communication, etc. And so we were well ahead of the game before the advisory even came out. So having said that, I think when he came out, he didn't really have anything really much to say, other than offer some suggestions around best practice. So our feedback, when I put together these slides, we didn't have the official report. We've since gotten the official report. We are 100% in compliance with all our standards, as well as our 3 indicators. They give 2 different ratings for indicators and for standards, and within both we had all compliance and fully implemented. Those are kind of the 2 designations that we receive. So that's wonderful news. We did have a really good discussion. Mark Pellegrino was part of the discussion as well, around looking at some of our substantially separate programs and looking at disproportionality within those programs. And we're very aware of our statistics. And right now, we are looking closely at our Hispanic, Latino, Latinx population, and we're going to continue to monitor. We haven't reached the level of any disproportionality, but we have had an influx of students, as Lori had mentioned, as well as the fact that we've had to open up another substantially separate program since the elementary school opened. So we are looking at that, and we continue to do that. And as I mentioned too, the calm down rooms was really just around continued communication with parents around use of those rooms. So.
Any questions, comments, concerns?
Thank you for the presentation.
Okay,
Thank you very much, Ms.
Great,
Weston.
thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, item number 3524, Special Education Parent Advisory Committee update. Mrs. Hurst.
I spoke with Lori Davis, the PAC chair. We're going to strategize some ways to try to get more interest into, parents coming to meetings. Again, it's like, people say they want to come and then they don't come. Just, I think, little things like getting it on the website for the school, and when making the principals and special ed liaisons aware that the meetings are happening. So Lori and I have been talking about just kind of widening her network a little bit. But other than that, they haven't really had anything much going on.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments, concerns? Moving on, item number 3525, Mass School Building Authority New School Building Project Update. Dr. Pellegrino.
School's fully functioning, things are going well.
Ribbon cutting on June 8th at 5:30 p.m. Invitations will be coming out shortly. My office just finalizes putting them together. It should be a good program. It will take place underneath the overpass in front of Gardner Elementary. That way, if it rains, we have a roof over us, but we can still do something outside, and then there'll be a dedication ceremony in the cafeteria after that.
It will not rain.
It will not rain.
I declare it will not rain.
There is a time capsule that will be filled at the ceremony. Will be a discussion at some point about what we will be putting into the time capsule. We're just finalizing that as we speak. Awesome. Thank you. Item J, communications. Dr. Pellegrino.
So first, this is Teacher Appreciation Week. So just make sure that we're thinking of our teachers in Gardner. Our teachers are hardworking and they care about kids. And I couldn't, the reason we're Tier 1, the reason that things are going in the right direction is ultimately from the people in the classrooms. They are the ones that are making the difference. Yes, we have the right leaders. Joyce always talks about her team, but she's leading the charge. So I couldn't appreciate more our teachers in the classroom who are actually making a huge difference for our kids. So thank you to our teachers. I was thrilled to have the Wildcat Gardner High School cheerleaders here. I think it's important that we recognize those athletes and what a great job they do, and the athleticism that goes into their routines is just unbelievable. So I definitely consider them athletes and much more fit athletes than I will ever be.
Or ever were.
Or ever were. Thank you for bringing that up.
I didn't see you doing any backflips.
No,
anywhere.
that's very true, and I never will. You're absolutely right. Yes, so thank you, and thank you, Lori. That was a great presentation, and I'm glad you're doing the work that you're doing, so thank you.
All right. Moving on to item K, final comments of the school committee. Mrs. Ward-Layton.
I wanted to echo what Dr. Pellegrino said, thanking Gardner's educators. Being an educator, I see things from one perspective, but now being a parent and watching my children go through school, you get the different stories. And I'm very impressed just with the communication from the teachers that my daughters have, with the openness to talk about my children's progress. And I know that I'm just one of, many parents, and just very happy that my children go here. Very happy that my children are in this district, and that, from the teachers. And I mean, when we say Teacher Appreciation Week, I do think about, our custodians and our food service workers and stuff who teach our children just those little things as well, those little responsibilities. And we're very lucky. And I know we say that a lot of these meetings, but we are incredibly lucky to have the dedication of the teachers. So cameras, wherever you are, thank you to everyone who teaches my children and all the teachers in Gardner. I also wanted to recognize the Gardner Elementary School PTO, the insane amount of events that they have planned for this spring. I wasn't able to attend last week's K-3 dance, but my husband sent me videos and pictures, and it was wild. It was just a lot of chicken dancing and cha-cha sliding, and it was a great event. There were great raffles, and I know that there's a VIP dance coming up for the fourth graders. So just thank you to Kelly Perkins and Shannon Roulette, GES PTO. They work very hard, and now that it's all like congealed into one, big group, they have a lot of great ideas. So, and that's all my notes. And it's concert season, and I think that we have the band concert this Wednesday. So
Tomorrow and Wednesday.
Tomorrow and Wednesday,
Yes.
that's right.
Yeah.
She has such a big program, she needs 2 nights. Michelle needs 2 nights to host all the kids, so, and that's all. Thank you all.
Thank you. Mrs. Hurst.
I just want to say congratulations to our cheerleaders again. That's so amazing. I always wanted to be one when I was little, but it never came to fruition. So I'm very clumsy by nature. And the presentations tonight were really spot on. And really, ladies, thank you so much for everything you do for the district. And thank you to all the teachers. We have amazing people here.
Attorney Belanger.
On repeat here, but yes, congratulations to the cheerleaders and thank you to all the teachers. And I think for the budget piece, finally the SOA money is starting to come in. I think that, that hopefully will continue for years to come. And I think it does. I mean, as you can see, it made things a lot easier to balance a budget and not come in trying to figure out how we're going to fill some gap up until the next fiscal year starts. Yeah, and in regards to the concerts, I know there's band concerts coming up at the middle school too, and the high school's having a few. There's junior, senior prom, I think, is this week. Spring is full with a bunch of events, and it's amazing how much goes on and how many different things, like on any given night, that is available for the families to participate in. So when you say working up against sports and other things, I think as parents, it's amazing how many different aspects we can pick from, and there's a lot going on here, which is a good thing.
Theme baskets this weekend.
Oh, yes, theme baskets.
Yeah, the Music Boosters theme basket extravaganza at the high school this weekend. Thank you. Mr. Schwartz.
Again, praises to all the educators in the district. And that also goes along with your directives, of all your directives. It's one well-oiled, functioning educational team. Everybody gets attaboys. Thank you.
Ms. Lafreniere.
All right, congratulations to our cheerleaders. And thank all our teachers, the paras, all the administrators. Exactly what Mr. Schwartz said, that it is. It seems like it's been going for 5 years, but this is what we've slowly been getting to, like a well-oiled machine. And it just seems like everyone's working together, and transferring students from one building into another seems so easy now, and it's wonderful to see this. I think we're at a very good place right now. And all the presentations, thank you very much. They're great. Thank you.
Mrs. Cormier.
I just want to say I appreciate all the presentations tonight. I know they take a lot of work and they take you away from your regular everyday activities, but as someone who learns things better by visual, I really appreciate that. It gives us a better opportunity to relay this information to the public as well. All the presentations were very impressive tonight, so thank you for that. As we touched on quickly, there is the Music Booster Theme Basket this weekend raffle. It's a big fundraiser every year for all of the music students in Gardner, not just the high school kids. We help fund all of the programs, where the budget may end a little bit sooner than they need it. They need a little bit of a boost. There'll also be students performing it throughout the day, and that's from 9 to 1 in the high school cafeteria. There'll also be vendors in the small gym. So it's just a way to come out and help the kids and help them continue performing. Obviously, the programs are growing and they need a little extra boost this year.
Thank you. We touched on the first 38 and change $1 million of the city's budget today, with the 31 million from net school spend, and then the rest from the non-net school spend related costs. The entire $83 million city budget will be submitted to the city council on Wednesday. The city council is meeting on Monday at 6 p.m. to do their school department review at a meeting of the council of the whole. I unfortunately won't be there. I've been invited back to the White House, so I'll be joining in by phone on that one. But if anyone would like to attend, that's when the city council will do their review of the school department's budget this coming Monday, the 15th at 6 p.m. here in this room. There's a lot of requests that I get from the mayor's office of doing a proclamation for this and a proclamation for that, and sometimes you wonder how one week can be so many different weeks at once, but I think that this is a really cool week. It being Children's Mental Health Week, Teacher Appreciation Week, Nurses Appreciation Week, and Public Service Recognition Week all in one week, because I feel like that really encompasses all of what everyone who works for our school department is doing, from the administration down to the substitutes. And everyone who's here in this room. So I just want to say thank you to all of you, and thank you to everyone who's not here, who still plays as big of a part that's going on. Just on behalf of me being the mayor of the city, I'm very blessed and lucky to be able to work with a team as good as this, and I really appreciate that a lot, and I just want to say that because I don't get to say that as often as I should. And then lastly, I just want to give a shout out to those who are graduating. I signed all the diplomas today, and that's one of my favorite days, because you kind of start to feel excitement as you see the name after name on. It's how you get through signing it's how you get through signing a stack this big of the same thing over and over again. But as the school year closes out, I just want to wish our students a fun end of their time here at Gardner Public Schools. With all the events coming up with prom and the senior events and everything else leading up to graduation, I'm really looking forward to that day and seeing what happens in between. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Lafreniere, seconded by Mr. Schwartz to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed nay. Motion carries. Thank you. See you all next month.